and it's good.
You're listening to The Extra Point, hosted by Phil Ruskin. Welcome.
Yo, welcome in. It is count 'em, Kendall, 2 weeks away from football season started, which means we did last week's Do Not Draft episode, and this week we're switching gears. You know, we're all about positivity on this show. It is the 2026 League Winners episode. As usual, I got my guy Kendall VanDerBilt hanging out with me. What up, dude?
Yo. Hey, it's a big one. It's League Winners. If we can get fantasy receipts to produce the show, so we can really keep us honest, I'd be down for it. I'm in for the pain.
Well, the good news is that if I want to, and I'm not going to do it right now, but if I want to, and I will, I can go back through the drive and find the 25 sheet, the 24 sheet, the 23 sheet, and we could do our own audit and see how
we should do a recap show. We should definitely do a little recap show. I like that idea.
I'm with that. That would be great. So before we get started, you know what? Never mind. We're full. I don't have any leagues. Never mind. I was going to plug a league and say, hey, we've got leagues if you're wanting to draft with us. But guess what, boys and girls? We are full up. So we're going to dive right into the show. We're going to start at the top. Kendall and I each have 2 players positionally that we are going to go and talk about tonight. We're going to start at the quarterback position. I'm going to kick us off because I'm positive this guy was on last year's show. In fact, I almost am positive. I can give myself 95% certainty that both of my quarterbacks were on last year's League Winners show because they deserve to be, because it's ridiculous. And you and I have talked about this ad nauseum for years, the inverse correlation between early, in this case, first round wide receivers for both of these teams, and their wide receiver 2s going in the 3rd round, sometimes 2nd, and then their quarterback going in the 10th round. And historically, that has been the disrespect put on Matt Stafford with all the years of Cooper Kupp and, Devonta Adams and everyone that has come through, the Calvin Johnson, all the players that have come through that have been first-round picks. But it's Jared Goff. And we're going to start at the top here with Jared Goff because he's going off the board as QB 16. QB 16, Kendall. ADP of 127 in the middle of the 10th round. All this guy's done the last 4 years is finish as a QB1 inside the top 10. And I went back and pulled these numbers because it's really easy to go and look at where he's finished. And he has finished those last 4 seasons as the QB 10, 7, 6, and 9. He's averaged 4,500 yards and 32 touchdowns. But the numbers I pulled today were, what has his ADP been over the last 4 years? And it's surprisingly low. It's quarterback 13, 15, and then 16, 2 years in a row. And yet we've had Amon-Ra as a first-round pick, as the wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 6, depending on the year and depending on, how things are shaping up in camp, but almost always at the 1-2 turn. We've got Jameson Williams almost always in the 3rd and maybe 4th round, depending on the season. Sam Laporta has been on this show as a league winner. He's been on the do not draft list. So he's been all over the case. Now, obviously, we've made the case for touchdowns regression for and against him. But then you also have Jahmyr Gibbs, who is not only going as the RB1, he's going as the overall 101. So it's hard for me with Goff to not understand how we're not drafting him higher, because you're talking about the only way that Goff fails is injury. And we don't talk about injuries on this show. We always presume health. So the only way that he fails is if Gibbs has all the rushing touchdowns. That's it. Or they run a trick play with an end around or something. But otherwise, if it's a passing touchdown, even to Gibbs, that is going to benefit Goff. So I'm struggling. You and I were talking backstage when we get to the tight end position at the end of the show. We'll talk through, is it the right move to pull the trigger this early on a guy that's this high? Why did I bring that up? Because Jared Goff's a league winner in the 10th round. And here's the players that you can draft instead of having to grab Lamar Jackson in the 3rd or the 4th round. These are the players that you can draft: Devonta Smith, Ladd McConkey, Tedoroa McMillan, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins. And that is what I have been calling, and you know this, is that it's not a sponsor of the show, but hopefully we can get some branding, right? The hot pocket. That's that pocket of receivers that if you're on that turn at the 3-4 turn and you start RB, or you do decide you've got to have Bowers and you start with a skill guy in Bowers, if you can come out of there with Devonta Smith, Ladd McConkey, or Garrett Wilson as your wide receivers 1 and 2, or your wide receivers 3 and 4, which would be even better, go grab Jared Goff in the 10th round. Go win your league. He's going to finish inside the top 12. He always does. He'll probably finish inside the top 10. So in the middle of the 10th round, give me the middle of the 9th round with a little bit of variance here as we get closer to draft season. Jared Goff's going to be on a heck of a lot of my redraft rosters, and I'm going to be very comfortable with the depth that I build at the skill positions, knowing that I've got a quarterback that's floor is probably 18 points a week, and on any given week, his ceiling is 34 to 40 points, and that's going to win you a week. So give me Jared Goff in the 10th round as a league winner, and I'm moving on in both formats, 4 and 6 point passing.
Yeah, he's kind of just value everywhere. I actually think you can take him later than the 10th in some leagues. The sharper the league,
leagues you can't, but yes, in the home league, you could. In your home league, you for sure could.
Yeah, there's some pockets there. So
and especially in one quarterback leagues where someone's gonna, I got to have Josh Allen, I'm gonna get him in the 2nd. Great, fine. Sure, you could get sniped by somebody that wants a 2nd quarterback and sticks Goff on the bench, but no, you're right. I think there's certain leagues where you're going to be able to get him in the 11th, which is insane. Yeah, who you got for us at quarterback, Kendall?
So I'm going with Trevor Lawrence as my first league winner over here. Yeah, we were really out on the Jags for a little while there. We got our house Jags oracle over here in Phil. But listen, with Trevor Lawrence, we've been talking about a lot of the individual players on the team, and I do think right now the sharp take is just, hey, all these takes are talking about like who's going to emerge. Well, we saw who definitely emerged for sure, which was Trevor Lawrence. It's really a tale of 2 seasons. And the stat that I think gets overblown is like those last 4 weeks of the season, basically correlated takes with when Parker Washington really started taking off. They're like, hey, that really worked. But if you really look at it, the entire second half of the season, I think he's a great pick in 4 and 6 point passing leagues because he can just do it all. It's similar to a Goff isn't rushing, but he just is objectively too safe everywhere. Trevor can do it all, so he's fine for all the scoring systems. In 6 point passing touchdowns in the second half of the season, he averaged 26.6 points per game. That's already where you take him pretty much a league winner. Weeks 12 through 18, it was 30.86 points per game. He was averaging 30 points per game during that stretch. It wasn't just the last 4 if you extrapolate it out a little bit. It was pretty phenomenal. So we think the offense has only gotten arguably better, right? We think BTJ is a little bit healthier, in my opinion. And also, even if you're not a BTJ guy, he is not a sacrificial X. He's a guy that can actually do it, which highly benefits the quarterback. It does weird things to defenses, and it just allows a competent offensive head coach to make pieces move. So we like their wide receiver core. Jacoby Myers doesn't even get mentioned. He's a guy that me and you have won a lot of leagues drafting. It's just the wide receiver before Wandale was a thing where he was just this PPR target, getting it done. And what he does for offenses is great. I mean, he got traded and boom, things start opening up. So the Trevor pick is just this combination of the weapons are across the board good and they're specialists. We've got a true X. We've got a really nice slot yak guy that can also do it all in Parker. We've got a second guy who can just go get a first down and is a savvy veteran. You can have him kind of, I think Jacoby kind of becomes more of a specialist, kind of like late season Tyler Lockett type of a deal. And I think Bashal Tutin isn't necessarily like a specialist, but in some cases, he's the type of weapon I think they've needed on this team. Because despite us really, really liking, I'm just going to say ETN. I mean, I just can't do it, man. We're on the like, if we get popular enough that we have to be correct, we certainly will. In the meantime, I'm just going to say it like everyone would at a bar right now, which is ETN. But his explosive play rate fell off the earth. He didn't really have many last year, which is what he was known for coming out of college. He was more steady Eddie, if anything. And I think Tootin, if you don't want to stack the box, if you want to try to make Trevor Lawrence's life a little bit difficult, Tootin's a guy that can punish you similar to a Travion Henderson, not to that level. But he was that guy. He's got the speed. And I don't think he's the do-it-all Swiss Army knife that can do it all at a high level. But in an offense that unlocks, players like that, I just think it's too much of all the different things. And so I think if we have a whole season that looks like the second half of last season, at minimum, you have value. At the top end, you have 30 passing touchdowns nearly penciled in. And I think the rushing touchdowns come down from 9. I mean, that's crazy, but it is awesome that happened. That's a real number that is technically a little bit repeatable. I think he probably is closer to 4 to 6. But 30 passing touchdowns, 3 to 4 rushing touchdowns, that's going to be a top 5 QB that you're drafting outside of the top 7 QBs typically. So for me, he does come at a little bit of a cost. He's still at a range where there's picks that you're going to like. But specifically, he goes late enough where you have fully locked up the running back position. And I think wide receiver is extremely replaceable. So even if I have to give up a wide receiver pick that is screaming value, which feels bad, there are guys this year that you're going to pick up from the waiver wire that are going to be very, very good. Your Adonai Mitchells of the world. He's just kind of my favorite right now as a guy who goes undrafted, but might actually have a very real role. Jalen McMillan with Egbuka a little bit banged up. He could walk in as the wide receiver 1, and we saw what he did last year when he walked in off of a neck injury and just catches 2 touchdowns and looks fantastic. These guys will go undrafted in many spots. So I'm fine. We've talked about burning a great wide receiver to take our medicine at the running back position. I think you should burn a value-ish first flex, type of pick to just go and take your medicine with Trevor Lawrence and know that over the next couple of picks, I think you're just going to feel fine after you do it. I'm such a late quarterback drafter that taking any QB inside the top 10 rounds feels weird for me. Doesn't feel weird with Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion. He's priced just right. I like him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to toot our horn for just 10 seconds. We have nailed the Jaguars takes the last 2 years running. This one seems a little bit of a cop-out, but my Jaguars take for this season is draft Trevor Lawrence and log out. Because it's difficult, that wide receiver and running back room, to project what's going to happen there. And if they have volume, what's left over for Strange, I don't know. But it's Trevor Lawrence handling the rock. So draft Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. That's where the value lies. So,
yeah. If you want, my quote is this: if you want to be right, pick one of the wide receivers. But if you want to win your league, just draft Trevor.
That's it. That's the answer.
Play the right game. Play to win.
Well, this show is not called the 2026 Be Right Show. It's called the League Winners Show. And I'm going to jump into my second quarterback because I've got another league winner here. This one is a little tiny bit more expensive, but not much. The quarterback 8, ADP of 92. He's coming off the board in the middle of the 7th round. I don't want to give the same take that I just did with Jared Goff, but it's hard not to, Kendall, because it's a very similar, it's almost a mirror. It's Dak Prescott. And so the last 4 seasons for Dak have been up and down because of injuries. But in seasons where he's played the full allotment of games, he's never in his career finished worse than quarterback 14. And that was in 2018. It's almost a decade ago. It's 8 years ago. When he's healthy, the last 4 seasons, QB8, QB3, QB6, very similar to Goff. We've got almost 4,500 yards and 32 passing touchdowns. Not as prolific a rusher as maybe a Trevor Lawrence that you just spoke about, but Dak can get into the end zone. He can give you 2 or 3 extra bonus touchdowns with his legs in a year. But again, it's that inverse correlation of CD's going off the board in the first round as the wide receiver 5. Pickens is coming off the board as the wide receiver 8. So you've got 2 guys in the top 12 that are being drafted to finish inside the top 12, and they can do it, right? It's not Chase and Higgins, but it's pretty darn close, right? And I think it's probably the second best duo tandem wide receiving core behind Chase and Higgins in the league. So I love what they have in the wide receiver position. Javante's a great player. He's a good player. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's a good player. And I like Javonte. He was on my short list for this episode at the running back position of league winners. But here's what I don't think Javonte is. He's not the focal point of this offense. He's not a Bijan. He's not a CMC. And I didn't put Gibbs in there because I think Amon-Ra can be the focal point there if Gibbs isn't, right? So it's a little bit more difficult, but Javonte is definitely not the focal point. Pickens is, and certainly CD is. And why do I bring that up? Because that means that the game is going to focus around Dak passing the ball. Javonte's going to have a good season. I think Javonte could have a great season, right? I think Javonte's, like I said, he's on the short list for me. He didn't make the episode for my list of league winners, but I think he's going to be great because he doesn't have any competition. This is about the quarterbacks, not the running backs. But I don't think that Brock Purdy has to be as good as Christian McCaffrey has to be for the Niners to have success. I don't think that Tua or Penix, who are disasters, have to be good for the Falcons to have success. Bijan has to be good, right? It's a reason why Drake London obviously is priced way too high. There's a reason why Drake London, we talked about him last week on the do not draft list. And there's a reason why he's not on the league winners. If they had more competent quarterback play, Drake London's range of outcomes potentially is in the top 5. CD's range of outcomes, George Pickens' range of outcomes is in the top 5 because of Dak. The defense is better. And this is what made Dak and the Cowboys so good last year was the defense was atrocious. Anytime you lose a Micah Parsons, I don't care who you bring in to replace him, your defense is not going to be as good. But here's the thing. I did some research on this. Every single credible website that's out there that's ranking DSTs, still, even with this improved defense, with Caleb Downs, the rookie, and some of the other guys they've brought in, still has this as a bottom third, anywhere ranked between DST 22 and 28 in the NFL. So even if they're better than they were last year, this is not a prolific defense. This is not somebody that's, this is not where, we talked about the Texans where a couple weeks ago where the Texans are going to win a lot of games, 19-14 or 17-13. I think the Cowboys are going to win games 28-25. I think they're going to win games 32-28. They're going to have to score. Dak has the 9th easiest matchup for quarterbacks, 9th easiest strength of schedule for the quarterback position. So if you're going to tell me that I can get 4,500 yards, 32 touchdowns, maybe 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns in the middle of the 7th round after I've already built out all of my starting positions and still added a flex, or I went for one of the early tight ends in the 7th round, I don't have to worry about drafting a second quarterback and worrying each week about who I'm going to play. Dak's a plug-and-play starter. Again, everything presumes health, but if he's healthy, I think he does it again, and he outperforms his ADP. He finishes inside the top 10. He probably finishes very close to the 5. Maybe that's a QB6. And in the 7th round, that's exactly what I'm looking for. That almost defines what a league winner is. So,
yeah, feels like cheap Joe Burrow to me. The more I look back at their seasons, and I'm like, man, he's just anytime he play, even the last time he played 16 games, it was the QB8. So outside of those first 2 seasons, I forget what years those were, but maybe 17, 18 when he come in league 17. Since then, anytime he's healthy, he's just a top 6 QB. I debated whether he was league winner or value, but I'm like, the answer is just like, man, when you get value at QB, like just like pure known value, like that always gives you just a stupid advance rate. So not that we're praying for a defensive injury, but we've seen a lot of offensive injuries lately. So
but I mean,
maybe they're a little banged up.
If we would, we're not going to play King of the Hill on this episode, but Dak's coming off the board as QB8. Could he have a better season than Jaden Daniels? Yeah. I don't like the weapons in Washington. Mm-hmm. If Drake May has a huge, then they got a hard schedule. I get AJ Brown's there, but like they got steamed up hard because of that's how easy that schedule was last year. Could he outperform Drake May? Possibly. Could he outperform Joe Burrow? Could he outperform Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams? Like these are the names that are going ahead of him. I think the sexiness of those names, right? It's hard to get Dak ahead of those because those are just bigger, bright lights. But when you take a look at the numbers, when you take a look at the offense, when you take a look at what those teams can do, it's hard, obviously, because Cincinnati's got the number 1 receiver and then probably the best number 2 receiver in the game. But like Jaden Daniels, I think Dak outperforms them if they're both healthy on an even playing field.
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty low on Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, he was on our do not draft list last week.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say there is there's something really particular with Dak, in that oftentimes, unless you're really in on Dak, you kind of always want to take him the next round and the next round. But what that means is if there's a wonderful pick on the board, you can take that pick and you actually get Dak coming around to you at a reasonable enough clip that you never have to reach for him. If there's a great pick or a great spot, you can make it and maybe get an 8th round Dak. Across 100 seasons and leagues, right? You're not going to get him every time. You will miss him. So if you're only in a few leagues, maybe just got to make the pick. But
Yeah.
I've found myself that I've seen some round 9 Dak, and it was just everyone on the board kind of agreed, like, we all want to take position players, so we're all going to wait like around, and it happened. So you mentioned in the 7th, but he's a guy that you don't always have to take in the 7th. If he's there and it makes sense, you're good. Pay attention on the board where CeeDee Lamb went. Typically, it's the back half of the first round, right? So if they're on the turn coming back towards the first pick, right, you can wait and get him on the back and take him before the guy that has CeeDee takes him. So just know where you're spiraling.
I did a mock yesterday, 12 team, full PPR, 6-point passing. Dak went at the 808. And it was a little mini quarterback run. And this was actually, this was just a random group of guys that I jumped in with, but there was a sharper group because there really wasn't Josh Allen at the back of the 2nd, Lamar at the top of Lamar at the last pick of the 3rd. No quarterbacks in the 4th. Drake May and Joe Burrow in the 5th. Daniels and Hurts back-to-back in the 6th. No quarterbacks in the 7th. And then all of these names in order, 4 straight quarterback picks. Caleb, Dak, Jackson Dart, Justin Herbert, all in the 8th round, 807, 8-9, and the 8-10 in a 12-team league. So I think the 7th is if you want Dak where you'll get him. But yeah, I think you're right, Kendall. I think you can get him in the 8th. But I'm curious to hear your name here because this one was, I'll be honest, it wasn't someone that was on my short list, but it is someone that I've been rising a lot on. So I'm really going to listen to what you've got to say here about this next quarterback because I'm interested as we get real close here into the thick of it with redraft season. This is a player I might find myself really staring down his name when I'm on the clock. So what you got for us?
Sure. Jalen Hurts is going to win a lot of leagues in 2026. I'm not going to mention his ADP and everything. He goes off the board in wildly different spots. It's really about a 2-3 round range, but for a talent of his talent, that's a pretty wide range. I'm a Colin Cowherd guy, so I often like the term manalytics. I love stats. I love numbers. This is mostly, I know the numbers, but the take is just purely in the feel. Okay. The exercise with Hurts is think what you think about him the first time you think about any takes on him at all, plus minus what list of yours is he going to go on, and then open up Sleeper on mobile, pop up Jalen Hurts in one of your, PPR, whatever, 1 QB, your home leagues, if you will. Well, I feel like we have really, really competitive home leagues. I hate that every redraft league is just called home league, by the way. Like, I don't know, for me, it's like the Texas Hold'em of our sport. It's like really where we cut our teeth. Like best ball is fun, but like it's not the like grueling process that redraft
you
is.
and I have a redraft. It's a keeper league, but it's still a redraft league that's coming up. That's auction with 12 guys, and I know 9 of them, and I don't like 8 of them because you're all good. That's why I don't like you.
Yeah, it's gonna be a pretty fun one.
That'll be a fun league for us. Yeah.
So with Hurts, just you pop up Sleeper and you just look at like the last 4 seasons, and you look at the numbers, and you're like, oh, shoot, I don't even remember some of those seasons. I don't remember. Is that the year they won the Super Bowl? Is that before? Is that what is it? And you're just like, oh, 1 billion rushing touchdowns, safe floor you'll ever see, and then 15 more touchdowns, than the nearest, competitor. He's just such an example of exacerbating the cheat code that is, I'm an athletic quarterback and my team leans into it, right? We've seen all kinds of positional talents. Sometimes what we often say, like, oh, he's just misused, right? How often do you hear that about every player we've ever liked in fantasy where, some terrible coaching scheme ruins him, right? We've seen that 100 times. Hurts is like the opposite. He's kind of a mediocre talent, in my opinion, that is leveraged to the nth degree with what works, right? That whole team just gets it right. I think they're the most ridiculous candidate for insane positive regression. I think the Eagles are a team that proves one of my long-standing theories that stats will probably never be able to prove because the game we love in the NFL is such a small sample size league that changes over time faster than the data can keep up with, meaning it will always be a small sample size because rule changes and I guess what you call the NFL metagame in the coaching circles change fast and subtle enough that you just can't take long sample sizes and have them be as predictive as just like nailing a take. Right? You can be wrong, but you can also be pretty right. Here's what I think. In organizational leadership, when you have the wrong diva at the wrong time, at the wrong position, with the wrong fan base, a lot of wrongs there, it's really hard to run a solid company. It's really hard. Think of outside the NFL. Just think of being a sales manager. How are you going to get all the folks to produce at a high level, on and off the field, in and out of meetings, and make that cohesive and still hit your fourth quarter numbers? I haven't been to an organization that just lucks their way into it because everyone's talented. And like the Madden rating for the Eagles has got to be off the charts. Their roster is insane. Their defense is insane. When's the last time they made the wrong draft pick? 5 years, maybe? I don't know. It's been a long time.
I think there's some people that would rather have had Justin Jefferson.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Instead of Nelson Aguilar. But other than that one, yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, that was the last time when you were like, ooh, Howie, you missed that one, sir. But,
yeah, that was pretty good.
Justin Jefferson, and they were on the clock before the Vikings. Nelson Aguilar being drafted over and Justin Jefferson doesn't feel good.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. Since then, though, I mean, took the medicine and made it work, right? But here's the point, right? Everyone says like they're just you can't tell me that losing AJ Brown somehow makes them better. Yes, I can, because I've been a part of a large company that has a lot of individual moving pieces that need to come together to hit a goal. Right? You work for a pretty large company that does that. I don't care that it's the NFL and all the things can happen. You got to get on the field. I think that like the NFL compared to like the NBA or other major sports, coaching matters. Cohesivity matters. There's more players on the field in this sport than anything that's really popular. Similar. Obviously, soccer's got a bunch of players, but I think that you see coaching changes, make wild swings in that sport too. I mean, you see that all the time. So my take is losing AJ Brown was a good thing. It's going to free up the coaching staff to just make good decisions and have fun again. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to worry. He can just go ball out and have fun. I think when you free up this team that is insanely talented, I think you're going to unlock a much more fun offense that's going to put up a lot more points, and Jalen Hurts is going to be the beneficiary. If they're just like a slightly above average NFL offense, he's a smash pick. Like, tell me they're the 16th best offense, and I still think he smashes because he's a cheat code. If he just throws for 25 passing touchdowns and all the rushes. So for all those reasons, big bounce back for the Eagles, big bounce back for Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to win some leagues. I think he's going to be valued at like a third round, but he's going to be taken closer to the sixth. Sign me up for that. If I get sniped on him, I can always take Trevor like 2 rounds later. So that's kind of my play.
Correction, it was Jalen Reagor that was drafted before Justin Jefferson.
I couldn't think of the name.
As soon as I said Nelson Aguilar, I was like, that doesn't sound right, Phil. And you knew that wasn't right. So I had to look it up. So it was Jalen Reagor in 2020 that was drafted 21st overall, Justin Jefferson at 22. So also weird, looking back on that, some weird decisions and some weird class, loaded class. That was a loaded, absolutely loaded quarterback and wide receiver class. So we're going to switch gears. We're going to jump into the running back position. This guy's been on the show 2 years in a row, possibly 3. He's back again because he just continues to produce. Coming off the board at the RB25, ADP of 51 overall. That's going to be at the 4-5 turn in your 12-team leagues. It's going to be solidly in the 5th round in your 10-team leagues. If you are not listening on Spotify or Patreon and you are watching the show on YouTube, you can see Kendall pointing to the jersey and doing a little fist pump. It is none other than Mr. David Montgomery. Listen, David Montgomery's not sexy. He's not. He's not Gibbs. He's not Bijan. He's not Omarion Hampton. He's not, the year 2 breakout for Ashton Genty that we're excited about. And I get it. I freaking get it. But here's what he is. He's projected for double-digit touchdowns and 1,000 yards. That's assuming health. That should happen. This defense is phenomenal. Why is that important? Because this isn't a high-power passing attack. So what happens when teams are losing the game? They got to throw. They got to catch the ball. They got to catch up in some capacity, and they've got to do it quickly. What happens when teams are winning the game or need to get into field goal range to win the game? They have smart, calculated, meticulous drives. 3rd and 3 sounds a whole lot better than 3rd and 7. And that's what you can get with this Texans offense is salting the game away in fourth quarters. I think he's going to maintain, there's no reason why he shouldn't, maintain the goal line role. And Woody Marks is fine. But what's the noise that's come out of camp? Well, they want to increase Woody Marks' route tree. Listen to that sentence. We want to increase his route tree. Doesn't mean they're doing it. Doesn't mean they're putting him in exclusively on 3rd down. It's saying we want him to get better at this capacity, which means he's not good enough today. So I think there's a world where, sure, Woody Marks is going to have a role in this offense. But I think there's a world where David Montgomery still gets passes and not checkdowns from CJ. Actual design packages where he is the pass catching option. He may not be the first read, but their first read is Nico. Who's their second read? Because it ain't Jaden Higgins anymore. And you know how much I love Jaden Higgins. I think you and I both would have had Jaden Higgins on a sleepers or kind of a breakouts episode that we would, that we do every year. But now he's out for the year with the ACL. Yeah. So now you're telling me that Jalen Noel's in there. All right, fine. Dalton Schultz is in there. Okay, but like these aren't target earners. These are guys that will be in there now out of necessity. And you're talking about Tank, who's basically, Kendall, 2 years almost fully away from football. I think all this benefits Monty. I think all of this benefits Monty. And as much as we don't want players to get injured, I love Jaden Higgins. I don't know that I would have put Monty on this show. He was on the list, of course.
Maybe value, but not full.
I think exactly. I think he would have been a value pick, but not a full-blown league winner. So every single year we see a running back drafted outside the top 24 that makes that leap into the next tier, whether it's positive touchdown regression, whether it's injury to other players around him, whether it's opportunity because injury on his own team occurs. But let me give you some names of guys that are already being drafted ahead of him that I think he could outperform. Travion Henderson. We know it's a 50-50 split. We've listened all camp and we've heard it really clearly from Vrabel, especially this week in the beat reporters. He's got to get better at pass pro. He's a 3rd down home run hitting guy. He is not going to get the 1st and 2nd down role, and he's not going to get the goal line right now. That's going to Ramondre. Bashal Tootin, that's a committee. What does that look like? We don't know. Sure, we think it could be Tootin, but do not sleep on Chris Rodriguez Jr. He's not a league winner. I'm not sitting here screaming draft Chris Rodriguez Jr. But I think if you have Tootin, you need to be afraid of Chris Rodriguez Jr. because that is realistically a player that's going to take work away from Tootin. DeAndre Swift. And Trevor, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You talked about 9 rushing touchdowns for Trevor earlier. DeAndre Swift. Monongai's hurt today, but he's going to come back. That's going to be a committee. Ben Johnson wants to win football games, and we've seen it with Ben Johnson, including when he had David Montgomery, where he's proven to us that he's got a 2-headed monster at the running back, and he is not a 3-down commit to 1 running back guy. Bucky, who knows? It's been a full year since we've seen Bucky, and Kenneth Gainwell's there. And there's a lot of people, myself included, that think Kenny Gainwell is a very serious threat to Bucky's workload, and that assumes he doesn't overtake him.
He's a better pass catcher than Bucky.
He's a better pass catcher. And Baker just talked to yesterday about how impressed he was with what an animal and what an athlete Kenny Gainwell is. Kyron, a lot of people, myself included, are very afraid that Kyron is a regression candidate this season because of the touchdown volume that he could lose to Corum. It's one thing if you get a touchdown or 2, maybe 3 vultured. It's another thing if it's goal line and Corum's coming in. And that's what I'm looking for in the first couple of weeks with the Rams is what does that goal line red zone really look like? Is it Kyron or is it Corum? Because if it's Corum, Kyron's yardage is not going to be there to outproduce a player like Monty. Josh Jacobs, he's not practicing. He's got this legal trouble. I think the legal thing is going to blow over. I don't think that's an issue. Yeah. But he's not practicing, and I don't know what that looks like, how seriously injured he is or he isn't. And then I'm going to give you this name, and you guys aren't going to like it, but I'm sorry, it's the truth. It's Devon Achane. They have no wide receivers in Miami. None. 0. So you're telling me he's running every week with stacked boxes. They've got no one to take the top off the defense to really open stuff up. Mike McDaniel's gone. There's no Tyreek. There's no Waddle. I'm not going to sit here and predict an injury, but you and I have talked about this. Every show in the world has talked about this from the time that he came out of Texas A&M until today. He's not a 3-down back. His body's not built to take that kind of a punishment. So Jeff Hafley coming out and saying, we want to get Achane 40 to 45 touches a game. That's great. And fantasy managers can salivate, but you've got to have some options to open space up, because I'm a coach. I was a coach for many years in my life. If you're telling me that I have to scheme every week to take away your best player, I'm going to do it. But then I have to ask myself, all right, if I take this player out, who's good enough to beat us? There is no one in Miami that is good enough to beat you. So I'm going to do everything I can to take Devon Achane out of the game plan and force Malik Willis and Malik Washington and whoever the fuck else is down there to beat you, because I don't think they can do it. So I understand the top 12, given some of the talent and the caliber of running back that there is. I think that's a difficult path for Monty to get to. But if you're telling me that the RB 25 off the board could finish inside the top 15, and that I do think is a realistic number, and he's your RB 3, which would be great. If he's your RB 2, that's fine. But if you start RB, come back wide receiver, and you want to take Monty in the 5th because you're going to go late quarterback and you're going to go late tight end, that's the definition of a league winner. That is phenomenal value. And for those reasons, given some of those names that I just gave you, that I do think he can outperform, that's exactly what I'm looking for in a player who ultimately I think is being underdrafted and undervalued because it's just not sexy. And you want to go grab that next guy that you think is going to take that leap. Because to your point earlier about the show, Kendall, you want to be right. I want to be right too, but I want to win the league. That's what I ultimately want to be right about is, hey, my team not only got to the playoffs, but I won the league. So I'm in on Monty. I don't know how much of him I will have, just because, again, I think other people are in on him too. So again, he could go a little bit earlier, especially if there's any negative things around Woody Marks in the next 2 weeks. Keep in mind, we are still about 2 weeks away from drafts really hitting. But I really like Monty again this season, especially in a lead back role where CJ Stroud is not the world's most prolific passer, and in an offense that just lost Jaden Higgins. I think that benefits Monty in a big, big way. So, Kendall, running back, do you want to start with here? Because you've got 2 really good ones.
We'll go with my maybe less controversial one. Let's go with Javonte Williams, guy that almost made your list, pretty easily made mine. So let's talk about definitions for a second. Like, what makes him a league winner, even though he is a little vanilla and somewhat unexciting, right? Like, I think you can make the argument that a guy like Travion Henderson has more upside than Javonte and is a spicier, fun pick. Totally get the angle, right? I get where that's coming from, but that's assuming no risk. There's the draft and there's the in-season. The guy that just gets it done every day, all day, is really, really valuable, especially at running back. So I think Javonte is a league winner because specifically how we're approaching running back this year, there feels like a lot of gross, risky picks that might work, might not work. When we're talking redraft, we really just want an advance rate, and we can make some in-season moves. I'm more of a fan of, I don't love the like, hey, you're going to win your league based on like waiver wire and what you do in season. I'm a bigger fan of, hey, the more competitive the league, the more that's going to be tough to gain an edge. But Javonte is a guy where we're talking about trying to really double tap RB in the first 2 rounds whenever they're good picks. But me and you did some theory crafting where we just talked about, hey, what if you're drafting at the 103, 4, or 5 and maybe off of McCaffrey, right? But right in that window, or at a CeeDee Lamb fell late situation, what are you going to do? There's about 3, maybe 4 draft picks where it just feels like I want to go running back so bad, but is there a way where I can take the wide receiver value when it's presented and still have an out to not be in real trouble? Because the dead zone comes up fast and it is unforgiving, in my opinion, compared to most years, because it's a pretty bad running back class with the rookies and with landing spots. So Javonte is a guy that you can get right now. His ADP is 36 overall. So you can get him in the early to mid 4th, which isn't the whole 4th, right? You may have to take him at that turn, but it gives you an out if you took a wide receiver in the first 2 rounds where I can still get a rock solid RB2 that I think I will treat as a low end RB1 in most cases. The amount of times last year where he was just 18, 20 points, just tried and true, it's just going to happen. So we know that the Dallas offense is elite. Its pieces are predictably elite. We don't have to project anything with Dallas. We just have to say 2 alpha wide receivers that are awesome, with a quarterback that just never disappoints, and an offensive ecosystem that is one of the easiest in the entire NFL to say, is it the best overall? No, but is it like guaranteed top 10? I think that's one of the safest bets you can possibly make. And there really isn't anybody out there that's screaming like, hey, Dallas could have a bad offense. I don't think anybody's arguing that, right?
Mm-mm.
And you made those good points where it's like Javonte is going where he goes at a little bit of a discount, in my opinion, because he can catch passes, but like Monty, he's not known for it, right? It's not his skill set anymore, at least. I mean, he caught a lot as a rookie. So actually, my point there is he didn't catch a lot of passes last year, and he was still a smash pick.
Yep.
I think there's a tiny little bit of built-in upside where I watched him his rookie season. I didn't see him as a prolific pass catcher in college, but I still think you can have that skill set when you need it. And I think he has just enough of it. But he's one of those running backs where he's one of the latest running backs that's still what I project to be an elite snap share guy. That is a really diminishing position. We're seeing RBs go kind of back to how they used to be because of how many running back by committees we're seeing these days. He's one of the cheapest guys that isn't in a committee and tied to a great offense, where we're talking about penciling in 10 touchdowns for Monty, and I think that's totally true. I think he can pencil in 12 for Javonte pretty easily in that offense, where 10 is just super, super safe. And the amount of times he just has 80 to 90 rushing yards with that on top. The 14 to 15 points per game just feels very free, and I like that. I like having a stabilizing pick that can just set up the rest of my draft. So he's a league winner for me because he bails me out, and I can take my fun wide receiver pick when it's presented to me. I can start with Jamar Chase and still be just fine at running back. Yeah. He's just a great spot in your draft.
I like what you just finished with there, because that's the perfect complement. Is if you start with a wide receiver, it does feel like in this draft, especially because the tier break, I'm not going to say it goes off a cliff, but it is significant. After Derrick Henry, the next player that I'm going to talk about, who I won't ruin here, but after that Genty, my player, Derrick Henry go, it does feel like a significant tier break. So if you start with an elite alpha wide receiver early, you kind of need to come back and go RB, at least in my opinion. Otherwise, you're not going to like your RB room.
Or the RB you're taking over a wide receiver is
correct.
Like objectively incorrect, like suicidally terrible, and take your medicine earlier.
I think you and I have talked about this, but rounds 4 through 6 is the absolute screaming pocket of wide receivers where you need to try to scoop up 2 in those rounds. And if I'm being honest, I'm going to try to get 3 in 3 rounds there, 4, 5, and 6. I'm hitting wide receiver. I will just finish with this. The reason Javonte didn't make my list for league winner, I agree with everything you said. And like I said, he was on my short list. It's simply because I think that passing attack for me is the focal point of that offense. Whereas with Monty, I don't believe CJ Stroud and Nico Collins is an elite passing unit compared to a Dak Prescott with CD and George Pickens. So I think Javonte is going to have a hell of a great season, and I think he's going to repeat, and he's got no competition. He's got none.
He's my cheaper Derrick Henry. It's kind of my idea. He's not as good. He's not the same guy, but his stats at the end of the year minus objective total rushing yards, I think will be pretty close to Derrick Henry. We'll do a fun A/B player at the end of the year and see who can guess who is Javonte and who can guess is Derrick Henry.
Oh, you mean some games?
Yeah. Do you like games?
Weird. It's almost like I love to do some games. Let me give you my second running back here. This one's interesting because it's not a super late guy. It's not a guy you can get in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. It's a guy that you've got to make a decision on at the 2-3 turn, which is why I think he's a league winner, because I think he's going to outperform the guys in that running back pocket that we've talked about. If you are in the 108 to 112 range, I think Kendall and my suggestion would be you really need to think hard and long about starting RB. I think that's probably what you and I are going to do if we're in that third of the draft, that 8 to 12 range. It's probably the draft strategy we're going to have. But I also think that this is a player that you really need to focus on with where he's going. So RB12, ADP of 19. He's going at the second round at the 2-3 turn in the 10-team league, but at the end of the second in a 12-team. It's KW3. It's Kenneth Walker. The post-trade hype, especially in Dynasty, was real. Now, as we get closer to redraft, I think that hype is settled a little bit. Yes, he's got his injury history, and we can talk through that, but we're not going to because everything presumes health. He's never been an RB1. Let me lay out the case why he will be. Patrick Mahomes was the leading rusher for the Chiefs last season. Yes, the quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, through the first 8 games before the injuries, was the leading rusher. They needed to get a player. They didn't bring Pacheco back. They signed Walker. They paid Walker. Rashee Rice is coming off of a major knee injury where he was in jail rehabbing it for 30 days. He did not look good in camp. It's been quiet since. I've never been a Xavier Worthy guy, but he's serious. He's clearly not worth the investment that they paid at the 31st overall pick and trading up. And Kelsey's a year older. So the Chiefs have not had consistency at this position since Kareem Hunt, and not this version of Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, the first time. Mahomes, also coming off an ACL injury. How fast can he start? He's certainly not going to have design runs. And I imagine he's going to slide a ton when he is forced to take off. So I think that offense is going to lean heavily on the run game, especially early on. Isaiah Pacheco received 47%, almost half of the team's running back attempts last season in 13 games. He and Brashard Smith combined for 1,200 yards. KW3 is a massive upgrade on both. 1,200 is easily in his range of outcomes, as is 10 plus touchdowns. He is the goal line back. He can catch passes. Sharbs is not there anymore. He's not a committee. I think if he can add 30 to 35 catches, which he has done even in the timeshare with Sharbs, that helps his value immensely. Kendall, who's the RB2 in Kansas City? Because I don't know.
RB2. I mean, I like Emmett Johnson.
Emmett Johnson, but it's a rookie. But that's my point. It's like I like Emmett Johnson too, but it's not someone that's going to take anything away from Kenneth Walker, is my point. So for the first time in his career, he enters the season with no competition on arguably the best offense he's ever been part of, with Eric Bieniemy back. So in 2025, if he had finished with 1,210, which is what I'm projecting him and most experts out there projecting him for this season, that puts him as the overall RB5, RB6. So if you're getting someone at the RB12, which is where he's going right now, to return RB6 value, especially if you start running back, and Kenneth Walker is your RB2, that's insane value. Or if you're at that turn and you just can't pass up Amon-Ra at the 108, and I think that's hard for a lot of people to pass up Amon-Ra, especially if James Cook's off the board at 7. You can start with Amon-Ra and KW3 as your first 2 picks. It's not just getting you in the playoffs. That's ceiling, and that's what I'm looking for in a league winner. So I'm in on KW3. I'm very interested in where he goes relative to Ashton Genty, who's going ahead of him, Jeremiah Love, who was going ahead of him until the ankle sprain last week, Derrick Henry, who doesn't catch passes. He's just a touchdown monster. I think Omarion Hampton's going to have a great season, but what if Mike McDaniel is not bullshitting? What if they really do ride the hot hand? What if this Tyler Biadasz thing is in a major impact because they've just lost their center and that impacts the running game? So I think when you're on that clock, I really want to hear what you have to say about your next running back, because I'm also very interested on him. I need to feel really secure if I'm starting with one RB, especially who it's going to be. And I'm looking for volume and I'm looking for touchdown opportunity. And Kenneth Walker's got both of those in his bag. So let's finish up the running back position before we get into wide receiver. Kendall, give us one more name.
I just realized right now, I got 3 guys on the same team on my list. So this is, I did not plan this. But I guess wheels up for the Eagles for me. Saquon Barkley's
fly, Eagles fly.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I looked at them independently. I think Saquon Barkley is a legitimate league winner. I did not want to take any running backs that were going to go at that 1-2 turn. It doesn't feel in the spirit often of what we're trying to do, where we want, we're doing this mostly because we're trying to win all of our own leagues, and we're kind of talking to each other if no one's watching either way, right? But if anyone is, and I certainly hope you guys are, right? This is about like, hey, if you have to make a pick at an area, how do we really analyze it a little bit? And I think it's just like Saquon's going just enough into the second round where that 1-2 turn is a real decision point. If you're in picks, probably 9, 10, 11, 12, literally that whole 4-pack is a pretty big deal. And getting your pick order right. So I think people are looking for takes. I was looking for them myself on Omarion Hampton. So here's why Saquon. Okay. I think I fully buy into that offense is going to have major positive regression. The whole team is too good in too many ways for fantasy points to not be scored, and I think a fresh start is exactly what they need. He looked the part last year. The whole team was bad. We often make this case, especially with like college running backs. Ollie Gordon is the most recent example for me, where he was the best running back in college, and then his offensive line imploded, and it completely destroyed his season. I think the running back position is heavily dictated by how good your offensive line is and what your scheme is doing. And the team and what's going on can really bring you up or down. Saquon was making pretty ridiculous highlights during a down season, so he looked good in the highlights. His box scores were terrible, right? I'm not knocking him for that. Similar to a way I'm not knocking McCaffrey for being a little bit less efficient, because he had to do everything all the time last year. I think with this offense, one with Mekhi Lemon kind of nursing the hammy a little bit, missing some camp, it's going to be tough to design an offense where he's as big of a role as maybe they had initially intended. Right. We like Dallas Goedert, but overall they have lost a major target and they need to increase their passing effectiveness to some degree. Right. So the idea here is I have a strong feeling that Saquon's targets and catches are going to have a massive spike back to where he used to be known for, like a real spike. I think he's going to be a major factor in the offense. I think they're going to look at it and say, we can't replace AJ Brown, but we never needed to. We replaced Saquon with a guy that I don't think we need as much as other people think we did, right? So if Saquon can catch 50 passes plus, and I think he does and should, so that's maybe the projection here, is I think he gets heavily used in the passing game. But if I'm right, then he belongs right in that top 4 with Bijan, Gibbs, and CMC. Except Bijan's awesome. Whose offense is better, the Eagles or the Falcons? Before you answer, though, I get it. The Eagles aren't known as a good offense after last season. But if you were to take like a more Madden rating, a more like, hey, let's say the coach gets his right. Who really has the better offense outside of scheme, just on paper? Outside of Bijan, I mean, can you really say they're better offense? Like, it's a much better offensive ecosystem.
Gibbs in Detroit. That's it.
I mean, that's why we're going Gibbs over Bijan, right? I mean, that's why he gets the tiebreakers offensive ecosystem, right? What I'm saying is Saquon often gets put at the back end or the towards the back end of that big pack. But I think historically, he's the most talented guy in that back. He's the most reliable. He's got the best highlights on tape that you can get. He just needs to get the passes. He just didn't get them last year. So the tush push hurts him. That's a real thing. I don't think he needs it. I think he can do a Devon Achane last year and finish as the RB 4 or 5, basically, on pure volume and effectiveness. And if the tush push ever falters even a little bit, even a tiny little bit, and it's more of like do we fake the tush push and just, Saquon go do it? I think that's a real play we're going to see once or twice. So if the team has a bounce back on offense, Saquon is a talent that will come with that bounce back in a major way. I think he's a league winner. He's one of the picks that I'll be making. It's funny that we did this way. My favorite way to do that turn is Kenneth Walker and Saquon Barkley. That's how I want to do that.
I was just looking at it because you got him coming off the board as the RB7, potentially the RB6. But if I give you some names like Bijan, Gibbs, JT, and James Cook and McCaffrey are off the board, that's fine. But if you get into that 108 to 112 range, and I want to talk safety, Saquon, Achane, Chase Brown, Hampton, Kenneth Walker, Genty, Derrick Henry. I'm taking Barkley and I'm taking Walker. I love Hampton, and it's going to be hard for me to pass on Hampton. But there's 3 guys there. And even if McDaniel's full of shit and it's Hampton all the way, we talked about this. There's going to be design packages for Kamani Vidal. There's going to be times when, it's Lad's day. There's a lot of things I think can happen. They just lost their center. That's a big deal. And Chase Brown, as much as we love him, and he had a great season last year, again, not the focal point of that offense, not when T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are there. So we're going to buzz through these receivers quicker than I think we wanted to, but we'll just do short, concise takes. Show's running a little long, but I want to start with my first one here. It is Ladd McConkey, even though they just lost their center, Tyler Biadasz. To be honest, I wrote this two days ago. So in preparation for the show, I didn't know he's going to get injured. Let's also be honest. Everyone who's ever listened to this show, everyone who's ever played in the league with me or even just knows me knows that Devonta Smith is, of course, my league winner, but he's always my league winner. So I had to pivot and try something new. Ladd is wide receiver 19, ADP 45. He is right smack in the middle of that hot pocket of wide receivers where you are going to want to scoop up 2 of them, if not 3 there at the round 3-4 turn for Ladd. He is a huge target for me as my wide receiver 2, although now with this injury to Biotish, there's probably 1 or 2 guys that I'm going to move ahead of him, including the player that I will talk about next. But look, man, the Chargers were going to be expensive as soon as Mike McDaniel was hired. It's a Mike McDaniel's offense. He has a 20% target share last year, and that was with a different OC. Hughes is already injured. He's inconsistent even when he's not. Trey Harris didn't show much last year, especially late in the season. Brennan Thompson was brought in, but he's a special teams guy. Charlie Kohler, David Njoku, Gadsden, I think are just all going to cannibalize one another. So there's just nobody here that's going to eat into the target share and the percentage of that passing pie that Ladd's going to get. And I think when you've got McDaniel, who has obviously shown as an offensive coordinator and now, of course, as a head coach, going back into an OC role, he targets his guys. I mean, just go back and look at the numbers for Tyreek Hill and for Jalen Waddle. I'm not putting Ladd in that category, but I'm talking about the percentage of drawn up plays, packages. And that's where I think you're going to see Ladd this season. The other thing Ladd does really well is he is a chain mover. He can be a possession guy. And Keenan Allen has historically been that, and obviously he's not there anymore. So I think the year that we expected him to have last year, that quote-unquote proverbial year 2 leap that just didn't happen, I think that happens this year for Ladd. Again, I have to look at some of the other names in that region of this pocket, the Zay Flowers. I don't want to talk about your guys, and I'm not going to talk about my next guy yet, but there are some other names I might put ahead because of this Biotish injury. But if I start RB, or if I start with a hero RB and I take a pretty sexy, an Amon-Ra, somebody to that effect, and AJ Brown as my wide receiver 1, let's just say mayhem happens and I get sniped on the players that I really want, I'm very comfortable with Ladd as my wide receiver 2. I'd be even happier with him as my wide receiver 3. With Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator, I think Ladd is, when I wrote this, was for sure a league winner. Now I'm a tiny bit less certain, but I love where he is at, even with this injury to Biotish. So, Kendall, give us your first wide receiver.
Yeah, let's just dive in. Rome. I've talked about him forever. Anybody who's a fan of our league tree ecosystem, anybody. If you don't, you do now. I'm the Bears guy, but even if I wasn't, Rome for me is just such like what if you're a Matt Harmon fan? Reception Perception, the wide receiver whisperer. He's been pounding the drum for Rome since the draft process and has not stopped since. And if you don't trust me, trust him. Always trust him. So here's the simple take with Rome. Okay. Caleb, still a little inaccurate, but no doubt is a guy that we think is going to captain an extremely potent offense. We have a head coach that I believe it when I say that his real goal is to have the most effective offense, the highest point per game offense in NFL history. I think he's actually going to go for it. Aim big. You're going to, you might miss and still hit pretty darn high, right? Condensed targets, right? This is not a running back room that gets a lot of targets. So it's Loveland, it's Rome, it's Burden. I think that's really where the offense is. And I like the condensed target share quite a bit. We saw it last year. There's a reason that there's some guys I'm just always willing to forgive, like Ladd. We've seen it. I think the NFL has shifts, but one thing it doesn't shift is you don't see a player come out early on and just crush it at a certain level and then just never see it again. I'm sure in your heads that if I'm watching this type of show, I'm going to think of a devil's advocate player, right? But it doesn't happen almost ever. Like there's a reason Emeka Egbuka is pretty high in my rankings generally. Mm-hmm. I know he's injured, but what he did as a rookie is crazy. I can't get over BTJ because you just don't dominate like that against NFL defenses. Even a bad defense has the best players out there. They're just slightly worse than the other best players in other teams, right? It's the NFL. Really, really nuanced. They're all insane athletes. So Rome's great. I think if Caleb can get a tiny bit more accurate, he had some catchable target issues where, yeah, sure, Rome objectively should have been better in some 50-50 situations. It's not helped when you don't have confidence and can expect the ball trajectory. right? Any wide, you heard crazy quotes like Jamar Chase coming into the league saying like, hey, you know, the patching being different, like the ball looks different in the air, and that's weird for me.
Yeah, the
Puka's
straps.
talking about reading logos and stuff on the ball. Like, well, when you do that for a living, yeah, you get to a pretty intense level of preparation and expectation, and an inaccurate quarterback can sometimes throw that off a little bit. So overall, top 5 NFL offense, in my opinion, projected in an NFC North that might be the best offensive division I've ever seen in NFL history, top to bottom. If Kyler hits, oh boy, that is going to be fun to watch. Objectively, if you're not an NFC North guy, turn on your TV on Sunday. There should be a red zone package that's just the NFC North playing against each other. That is going to be lights out football. Bears Lions is going to be one of the best games of the year, in my opinion. That's going to be insane to watch. So with NFC North shootouts, Burden I just don't like as much, because even if Burden is the Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think that means that Rome is the Mike Evans. He's just going to get 1,010 touchdowns, pencil it in, and if the offense is better than average, like that could get pretty stupid pretty quick. So if he was going in the 3rd round, I don't know if he'd be a league winner for me, because there's a lot of great talent there. We're talking about a lot of them. But he doesn't. At this point, he's basically going in the late 4th, 5th. I've seen him go as late as the 6th. That is far too late for a guy that I think is going to be a fringe wide receiver 1 in the NFL and in fantasy this year. You just combine great offense, high-level quarterback, Ben Johnson, NFC North. I mean, name something that's not in his favor, even if you don't love the talent and think he's got some things to work on. It's just all adding up. And if you add the talent and the off-the-field, the fact that he's a good dude, he's no drama, Larry Fitzgerald is banging the drum for him as well, as a guy that he thinks is going to have a real long career in the NFL because of what he does off the field, being a very good leader. Combine all those intangibles with his skill sets. Smash pick for me. Give me some Rome.
Yeah. Love it. In on it. I'm going to talk about a player here that we don't do a My Guys episode on this show, but if we did, he's a My Guy. That's where I'm at now with this player, which is scary because of who he plays for. But, you know, I like my data and I like my numbers to support my theories, and that's where I'm basing this off of. Wide receiver 18 coming off the board at ADP 44 at the 3-4 turn. Garrett Wilson. It's late, and it shouldn't be, and that's why he's on this show as a league winner. 33.7% of his team's passing targets, Kendall. 33.7. That puts him number 2 in the NFL among all active wide receivers last year, behind only
Jamar Chase,
Jackson Smith, and Jigba.
Oh, yeah, no, you're right.
Because there ain't nobody else in Seattle. Listen, Geno's not great. We know it. But he's an upgrade over whoever the fuck was there last year. So, and don't forget this. Please don't forget how Garrett Wilson started last season. Wide receiver 7, wide receiver 51 against the Bills, fine. Wide receiver 7, wide receiver 11, wide receiver 15, 4 touchdowns in his first 5 games, averaged 76 yards in those games, and then the injury happens. He was the wide receiver 1 through 5 games. So this is a player who's on average getting 65 to 75% of his team's wide receiver targets. He's getting 3/4 of the wide receiver targets, and he's getting 35 to 43% of his team's total targets. That's insane. That includes the running backs, of course, and the tight ends. So if the Jets staff has any chance of keeping their jobs, and I don't think they do, but they're going to try to. They're not just going to sit there and roll over and just wait to get fired. They're at least going to try before they get fired. What are you going to do? I know what I would do. Get the ball to your best player. So I don't expect these percentages to go anywhere except at the worst, to hold. And here's why. They drafted Omar Cooper Jr. Great. I like Omar Cooper Jr. You and I both do. But I haven't heard shit come out of camp about him. Quiet as a church mouse. Kenyon Sadiq, injured. High potential, but tight ends take time to develop. Brees, injured right now. We'll see how long this thing lingers and how long it goes. So it's Garrett Wilson. There's nobody left. Sure, I like Braylon Allen, but there's nobody left. So if Geno can be competent, and I mean even a little bit competent, and Wilson stays healthy, this is a no-brainer, surefire top 12 wide receiver with 1,107, which he did 2 seasons ago. He did it. And that put him as wide receiver 11. So you're telling me that I can get a wide receiver who's probably going to be the wide receiver 2 on my team, Or if I go superhero build, which I can't because I don't want to go 0 RB anymore. But if you do, and that's what you want to go as the wide receiver 3, I mean, this is a guy that you're getting at the wide receiver 18. Listen to this pocket, and then I'll wrap this. This is a no-brainer pick for me. This is why he's a my guy. This pocket right here is awesome. Devonta Smith, Zay Flowers, Tedoroa McMillan, Emeka Ibuka, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Ladd McConkey, Jalen Waddle. There are a lot of names right there that I just read off at the 3-4 turn, especially if you're at the 108 to 112. You want to grab 2 of these guys at a minimum. If I can come out of here with Garrett Wilson, Ladd McConkey, T. Higgins, of course, who I would take, and the guy you're going to talk about next, who is always a my guy, I am so excited about the way that my draft is going, knowing I've got 2 guys with real chances to not only outperform their ADP, but to get inside the top 12. So, Kendall, why don't you wrap up the wide receiver with a guy who is I couldn't do it because I do it every year. He's always my guy, but I want to hear your take on the player that I love so much.
Hey, you glazed up Monty. Just sit back and enjoy, man.
Let me enjoy this.
Let the train ride.
Let me have.
Honestly,
I've had my dinner. Let me have my dessert.
Look, you know I'm like the world's biggest Garrett Wilson fan too. So that was fun. That was fun to listen to. Garrett Wilson is my pick for this year's JSN. He fits the archetype to an absolute. I don't want to swear too much, but yeah, he's that guy. I think he's also just a better talent than JSN. No offense to JSN, Garrett Wilson's better wide receiver. Swap their roles. He does the same thing for sure. So if there's a guy who could literally finish as the wide receiver 1 overall and no one's talking about, it's Garrett Wilson. I could see it happen. We already saw it. It was in your take. Let's talk about Devonta Smith, baby. Eagles 3 for 3. Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, Saquon Barkley. Eagles might win a ring this year, guys. I don't know. They're going to have to beat the Bears. Good luck. We'll see what happens.
Niners.
All right. Devonta Smith, bounce back offense. Okay, we already took that take earlier. We're just going to rinse and repeat here real quick. I think the offense will just work a lot better. We know that all-star teams fail sometimes. You see it with a lot of American all-star teams from time to time. We are so bad at cohesivity sometimes, right? I think they're literally that good that some Eagles rosters could just be called an all-star team. And I think when you remove the loudest pieces, it shows like, oh, we actually didn't lose that much. We're that good. I think Devonta Smith is the less is more. Being able to use him more creatively, moving him around a little bit. I haven't seen the PPR Devonta Smith in a while. I miss him. I remember him, though. I remember the slant king. He is so nice running a slant route. His separation in such a small amount of space is just really, really fun to watch. It's one of my favorite things that he does is just run a quick slant and make it work. And I think he's going to get a lot more of those freebies this year. There was too many targets that were just forced in the wrong way in a weird offense last year. It didn't make any sense. Give me some of those layups. We talk about it all the time. Some guys get layup targets, some don't. That's the big reason why some coaching schemes are like, oh my God, fade it, right? To some extent, why RIP, I love Mike, but like, I don't love your coaching staff all that much on the offensive side of the ball. That gets pretty scary from time to time. So I think we're going to see a lot different stuff from Devonta Smith. And then the ability for Hurts to extend plays. And then Devonta Smith is like better than Zay Flowers at the broken play thing. I think that's pretty fun. So you get all the upside of the free PPR stuff, plus his deep stuff, plus better target share situations, maybe some positive touchdown regression. And I think it goes underrated. He's an elite talent. We don't love his body shape size, right? Like he's the Slim Reaper. I mean, you don't get that nickname for nothing, but he's so good at what he does. He's probably the healthiest lightweight athlete out there. He just rarely gets injured. And even his recent injury, Lemons is a lot worse than his. Yeah. Not bad either way, but like he just shakes it off pretty quick. So I think he's a good, maybe great. I'll say he's a great NFL talent in a great team that's about to get some favorable regression. And I think just some feel good vibes and all of that I think is going to lead to him just being a value in the third round. I really see him much more closely to the round 2 talent in terms of offensive ecosystem and like easy click. I would much rather I like him in the third more than I like some of the guys at the late. I think he outscores Drake London straight up. That's one of my best examples where Drake goes ahead of him. But you're telling me Hurts in that offense on a good day, not a great day, just a good day, won't absolutely destroy Drake London and whatever those two guys can throw in the ball can put together. Yeah, I'd water bet anyone in the industry. Devonta Smith will have more fantasy points in PPR, any format, honestly, than Drake London. Devonta Smith league winner.
I'm always on Devonta Smith's team. Devonta Smith is someone I'm very comfortable with. If I start RB taking as my wide receiver 1. If I start with running backs in round 1 and 2 and I come back with Devonta Smith, Lad McConkey, Garrett Wilson, and that's a very real build. That's a very real build. I'm pretty in a 10-team league. That's a very real build. In a 12-team, you might end up with Rome, you might Devonta Smith, Garrett Wilson, and then Rome, Carnell Tate. I think that's exciting. So we're gonna blitz tight end quickly because it's hard with tight end for obvious reasons. I think we all understand what the tight end position isn't. So I think Kendall and I are gonna do our best to give you. We talked about some do not draft tight ends last week. Breaking news, which was breaking at the beginning of the show, but I didn't want to ruin it because we were going to talk about this player. But Tyler Warren has an adductor strain. He should be back next week. So that's fantastic news. Tyler Warren is my league winner tight end. And you're going to say, Phil, that's so easy. Of course, he's a league winner. He's a top 4 guy. Here's why he's my league winner. Because he is being drafted as the tight end 4. And I love Colston Loveland. I think Colston Loveland, everyone's on that train. But if you know the Bears, Kendall, of course, you do as a fan. But I think anyone that follows fantasy understands the Bears. There's a lot of mouths to feed. So, yes, could Colston Loveland be the target leader in that offense? Of course he can. Can he be the touchdown leader? Of course he can. But there's a lot of ways it goes wrong for him.
Mm-hmm.
Trey McBride, there's a lot of ways it goes wrong. Mostly, Arizona sucks, and they can't do anything. That's the number one reason why Trey McBride fails. There's no one else to catch the ball. Marv's not great. Right. I mean, we understand what's going on there.
Touchdowns go away like they've had.
Touchdowns go away. They can't get first downs, can't get in the red zone. There's a lot of ways it goes wrong. Brock Bowers, kind of hard for him to fail.
Round two, so tough.
Round 2 is expensive. And this is why Tyler Warren is my league winner, because I think he can be the overall tight end 1. I don't think he will. I think Bowers will. But I think if you're telling me that I have a chance to not have to draft in the second round a guy who could be the overall number 1, or definitely in the conversation for overall number 2, and I get a 2-round minimum discount, maybe in your 10-team leagues or in your home leagues, a 3-round discount if I can get him in the 5th, which is where he's going right now today, is the ADP 59, 5th round. Alec Pierce is on the pup, guys. They just signed Keenan Allen because Alec Pierce is not healthy. I love Josh Downs. You love Josh Downs. But there still has to be other players, and I don't think that that's going to be somebody who takes a ton of targets away from Tyler Warren. JT's the guy. And why is that important? Because there's nobody that comes on the field like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where you go, oh, shit, Kenny Gainwell's on the field. That's a pass-catching guy. It's third down. That may not be the tight end. That may be a running back target. That may be a designed, package for the running back. So Daniel Jones coming off the torn Achilles. How much running will he do? Probably not a lot. I think Tyler Warren's obviously a chain mover. He's the target leader. He also has that rushing upside. They can put him in the Wildcat and let him get some rushing touchdowns there. Mm-hmm. So I think Bowers should break the tight end position this season because I do like what the Raiders are doing on their offensive line. But I think Warren has a real shot to be the overall tight end 1, easily the tight end 2, especially in PPG. I will just say this so I don't have to do a second take. If you just can't get there and tight end early is just too expensive for you, I like Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews a lot. I think those are guys that I'm going to wind up with probably on my rosters, at least in some of my leagues where I don't pull an early tight end pick, simply because their path to relevancy is that they are the second pass catching option. Obviously, Likely is the pass catching 2 option there right now. With Malik Neighbors coming to the season starting slowly. Mark Andrews is a little bit older, but this isn't dynasty, this is redraft. So if you tell me that it's Zay Flowers, yeah, Bateman will be on the field. Yes, Jacoby Lane is there. Elijah Surratt is there. Of course, Derrick Henry's going to run a ton of touchdowns, but I like Mark Andrews if you need somebody that can be, a very cheap 10th round, 11th round. I do not think Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews will be league winners, which is why it's so difficult at the tight end position to project something like that. But I do think if you're willing to invest in the other skill positions early, I think they're probably your safest late round tight ends that could still get you some quality usable weeks with some touchdown upside.
Love it. All right, let's jump in. I'm going to give 2 pretty quick here as well. My league winner number 1 at tight end is going to be George Kittle. Mr. Playing with the substation over there.
Mhm.
Everyone's getting injured. I just think Kittle is that guy where a lot of people like Xavier Worthy's a guy. Man gets injured. I'm really worried. I'm just not as worried about Kittle. He takes his rehab seriously. I think he can play through injury better than most. You just know when to play him, right? In redraft specifically, when he's healthy, you play him. He's not a player that even if he's a little banged up, if he plays, he's going to be fine. He's not a guy that will kind of disappoint if he's on the field. I know Deshaun Stribling is getting steamed up a little bit, but I really think that kind of the PPR go-to guy. I'm drafting plenty of McCaffrey where he comes up, but I do think a healthy Kittle where everyone else is dropping off. I think Kittle actually still has like the overall tight end 1 in his range of outcomes, and he's just going a lot cheaper because the narrative for the team held him down. His own injury held him down. He's a guy that like his trade value, if you just draft him, his trade value going into the midseason when he starts getting healthier and catches form, assuming he does, and I think he will, just going to be a smash pick. I think he's value where he's going. Mid-round still difficult, but I think where you can kind of get him, he's still quite a value, and he can finish pretty close in PPG to Warren. A lot riskier, but you're getting a discount on him. League winner number 2 is going to be Dalton Kincaid, a guy that I've been a stand for a little while now. The general idea behind Kincaid is if you watch like the early season box scores, the guy is insanely efficient in an extremely good offense. His real issue has been health and snap share issues where like his fantasy points per minute played in the game is off the actual charts. When he's on the field, he catches passes and does well. I remember watching the opening game of the Bills last year, and it was I'm pretty sure it was the very first target. I've got to remember this the right way. So two of the first 3, I think, were actually just drawn up for Dalton Kincaid, and you could just tell like, oh, this could be really, really special. And then he kept getting banged up, and they had to go to some other ways. James Cook was kind of the league winner for them, but don't overthink it. He's talented, former basketball player, fantastic in the red zone, great body control, really comfortable taking contact. Josh Allen really likes finding him. Josh Allen likes to push the ball down the field, and Dalton Kincaid can get down the field. He's got some decent speed. And I just think in that offense, DJ Moore I actually think is going to be quite good. But I think DJ Moore really helps Kincaid find more mismatches and takes the focal point a little bit away from him, where I don't think you had to. I think Kincaid was easier to scheme out when you just had, Shakir running around doing stuff. So I like the offense. I like an offense that should score a bunch of touchdowns. I like having a guy that will catch a touchdown. If he doesn't get the yards, at least he can fall down and then they're in the red zone long enough. And he's really forgotten. There's sexier names, and I was just in a draft where Kincaid is still on the board and we're in the double-digit rounds, and we're getting around like 13 and he's still on the board. Because he's not a top 12 tight end in some circles right now, in some leagues he can go pretty free. And so as a late tight end, Kincaid, there's injury risks. The chances when if you roster Kincaid, you're going to have a second tight end are higher than I would like. Mm-hmm. But when he's on, he's really, really on. So both these guys fit an archetype of better to have 6 bench spots than 5, but is what it is. We're playing to win the league, not to play a little bit safe. And these guys are later, absorb the risk, and maybe hit it out of the park.
I did a draft yesterday, about 24 hours old, 12 team, full PPR, 1 QB, 2 tight ends, 2 tight ends, sorry. 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. The guy that drafted at the 102 took Bijan at the 102 and then took Josh Allen at the turn. He took Kincaid at the end of the 8th. So a little bit more expensive, but at the end of the day, if you're going to take Josh Allen, I like waiting. You don't have to stack. This isn't best ball. You don't have to stack in redraft, but I like that play if you're going to pull the trigger early on Allen to just say, look, if I'm going this early on Allen, I know I need to load up on the running back and wide receiver positions because of the expense. I think it's almost the perfect play for you to go and get Kincaid late. So I like it. That's going to do it for this episode. Kendall and I will be back when we will talk a little bit about some, not necessarily sleepers, but just some late round guys that we think you need to leave your draft with. And then it's going to be time. It's going to be time for you to actually get in there and make some real decisions. The mock drafts will be done. The best ball season will be over. And we are, of course, Dynasty is done. If you're still doing a Dynasty draft, that's wild, but I know there's 1 or 2 that are still yet to be conducted. But for the most part, we are shifting into full redraft season. So for all of us here at the Fantasy Football Network, thanks for joining another episode of The Extra Point. We out.